Welcome to The Path. This podcast is a production of the men's ministry of First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee.
Welcome to the Path podcast. As always, I'm Jeff Tarkington along with Foster Carney. Today, we are honored to have our guest, my friend Jim Holcomb. Jim has recently served as the Director of Business Operations for Acorn Leadership Institute. In the past, he has been a teacher, and I would say probably his most notable claim to fame was he spent 21 years as a Secret Service agent, some of that time being on the presidential detail. He has his history. He has a degree in U.S. history from Cal State Sacramento, and also a master's degree in national security and strategic studies from the U.S. Naval War College. So, welcome, Jim.
Thanks, man.
So happy to have you here. As we get started, I got to tell a little funny story. So, Jim was speaking at an event I had last year, giving some leadership training, and I go, "Hey, I need you to send me your bio." And he sends his bio in, and I told him today, I felt like you were sending that to see if I was really going to read it, because in it he said, talked about being a teacher, and then I decided to turn my back on America's youth, and pursue a degree or pursue a career in the Secret Service. And I'm like, did he really mean to say that?
I did.
He did mean to say it. So I was like, I thought that was one of those things like you have in celebrity contracts, like I can have this many green M&Ms or something like that, or just some weird thing to see if I was actually paying attention.
You're not the first to call and say, do you want me to say that? Like it sounds, it is, as you know, Jeff, I like to be funny, and I never miss an opportunity for us to make people chuckle. And any of my students, former students who are now good gravy in their 40s, will find that hilarious. So, and they will feel the same way. He turned his back on us for a career in the Secret Service.
That's awesome.
I'm so happy to have you here. I know we've been talking about this for a little while and just trying to arrange schedules to get you here. I didn't want to give too much of an introduction. I'd rather hear it from you. But I guess we can start off. Just tell us, about you, about your life, and where you're raised and your background.
I would start by saying that if anybody listening hasn't heard the Hunter Manus episode of this podcast, they should discard anything I have to say. Just skip this podcast. Go back and listen to Hunter. That kid at 17, coming up on 18, he's got it figured out.
Man, that kid was sharp. I told Hunter, I said, dude, things, you're walking out things in your life that grown men don't even know about.
100%.
Yeah.
I was inspired by that guy, and it's not a tall feat. I mean, he's an inspiring young man, and I'm so excited for him and what lay ahead in his life. So disappointed that he's going to be a firefighter, but
definitely,
hey, we can't win them all. Yeah, we won him for the kingdom, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
Amen.
So a little bit about me, man. I was born and raised, he looks around cautiously, in California. Born and raised just outside San Francisco in a town called West Pittsburgh. It's like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but with no H for some reason. And went to high school in the neighboring town, Concord, California. And East Bay, California was awesome growing up there, man. It was just a fantastic spot. I get a lot of grief here in Tennessee from being from California, but as I like to tell any people I meet, I brought none of their politics, a little bit of their money, and all the Jesus. So hopefully we're cool. And since moving out here, guys, I found out that my maternal grandmother's entire family is from White County up in Sparta, which makes me love this place even more. And I've been up there a couple times now. But going back and looking at her family, came from North Carolina and settled Tennessee and fought in the Revolutionary War in North Carolina, but then in the Civil War on both sides here in Tennessee. And then they up and moved to Iowa. Things got a little tense, I think, after the Civil War for them. And that's where my grandmother was born. And then she made her way out to California and met my grandfather. And, that's how my mom and her side of the family make it to California. So, I am the second of 4 kids, but I may as well have been the oldest. As my older brother is great in his own special, unique way, but not necessarily interested in being the oldest and the responsible guy. I've got a younger sister who comes after me, and then a younger brother who's about 8 years younger. So,
what was your family life like growing up? I mean, that's a big age difference, like 8 years younger than you. And how old is the oldest?
So my older brother's 4 years older than me. And shortly after my sister was born, and she's 3 years younger than me, my parents got divorced. Mom gets remarried a couple of years later, and my younger brother is born. And, East Bay, California, it's not, the crazy expensive place it is now, but, it was always tough. And we were, my father was a steel worker. And I think that's how Pittsburgh gets its name in California, because it too had a steel plant. My mom was able to stay home for the first few years, and then went and worked at a bakery in the nearby town as delivering bread to the stores. And then at some point becomes a grocery store clerk. And so that's her life path, And so for me, school was super important. I always liked school. I always did well in school, and it was kind of a happy place there. Home was tense. My father, who's now passed, was an alcoholic, and that was tough.
Yeah, I know you mentioned your mom and dad were divorced. How old were you when that happened?
Under 5.
And you brought up Hunter, and one of the things we talked about was, how grateful it is to come from a home where your parents, stay together and unify. What kind of impact did that have on you? I mean, I know you're very young, 5 years old, but
yeah. So I think the biggest challenge, and so my stepdad, who later adopts us, and we changed our name, was there from the jump, but there was always this other father figure, and so as a kid with allegedly 2 fathers, but for me personally, like never feeling like either one really wanted you, is it was tough. So and you're living with that tension with your and so my mom had custody of us, but you're living with that tension with your mom, and there's no time that she references your biological father that isn't just filled with tension and bitterness, and as a kid, you see it one way. As an adult, man, I think a watershed moment in all of our lives as adults is when you realize, hey, your parents are people too. And they likely had loves before, your parents. They had disappointments, they had ambition that you as children probably derailed. And so, definitely sympathetic to, the impact that had on my mom. But as kids, man, it's pretty devastating.
Yeah. We one of our other guests was a guy named Reggie Crenshaw. Mm-hmm. And he talked when he was on. I'm friends with him. We're talking. And I'm learning stuff, just like I'm learning stuff about you. I had no clue about.
Sure.
But the same with him. And he said his dad was an alcoholic. Never knew that. And his parents split up for a while. Never knew that either. Then they ended up getting back together. But and that led him to never drinking, because he saw the impact that it had on his father.
Yeah.
And he didn't want that. Now, he had his other vices that came about and stuff, but, overcoming things and everything. Did that have knowing that your father was an alcoholic, did that have any kind of impact on you?
So, when he got sober, we became a teetotaling house, and, alcohol was the devil. And again, definitely teetotalers, except for the times where, frankly, man, he fell off the wagon, and that was always created a very volatile time in our house. So I grew up, and in high school I was involved in things, Safe Rides back then, and then Friday Night Live, which was programming to encourage kids not to drink and to stay off drugs and things like that. So that helped me certainly all through high school. In college, I discovered beer and discovered that it can be fun for young college men. if my fraternity brothers are here, they would say, and his face betrayed him as it said, he doesn't really like the taste of any of this, which is true. And, I don't drink anymore. And I was never really enthusiastic about it. It was kind of social drinking. But, I think the older you get, unfortunately, I'm able to make choices unlike, maybe my father or other alcoholics. But I'm just like, I can do without this, and so I have. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it's good. A minute ago when you mentioned that your father had passed away, how long ago was that and what age was he when he passed away?
It was about 5 years ago, so early 70s.
Okay.
I reckon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were you involved in? I know we talked about, the tension and stuff, but like going to school and stuff, did you use sports? I know you're very smart.
You need to meet more people. The answer is everything. What was I involved in? Literally everything. I was a 5-sport mediocre athlete. And by 5-sport, I mean I played the same sport 5 times. I was, never very good. I was as good. My abilities were commensurate with my effort. And I was, not a very disciplined athlete by any stretch of the imagination. I got better the older I got at, some stuff. And but in high school, it was all social, and I certainly loved it. From a young age, you'll find this hard to believe, but I was involved in drama and school plays and school performance. I could see the shocked look on your faces. I've never met a microphone I didn't like. In fact, I'm probably going to take this one home with me. But any opportunity to perform, again, and people who know me listening to this will be shocked. But loved it, man. And so did theater, through junior high, heck, even elementary school. There's my earliest role, gentlemen, here on the Master Theater was I played Santa Claus in the 2nd grade. Was hilarious. I was the Grinch in the 3rd grade. I beat out all the 4th and 5th graders. And then in middle school, I'm sure I did some stuff. But then in high school, I did all the school plays, and they were awful school plays until senior year. We got a new director, a new drama teacher, and he brought some comedy to it. And I'm like, this is the pinnacle of my high school existence. I was involved in student council. I was a class president, and then student body president. And thanks for the special parking spot for former student body presidents out front. I really appreciate that.
We made that just for you.
Just for you.
It's a very nice touch. I lead with that on my LinkedIn bio, so involved in all that. And it's all so dumb. It's like none of it matters. It's all so silly and ridiculous. But it matters when you're a kid and all that stuff, man. It was certainly important to me then. But I say it now knowing how absolutely, utterly ridiculous caring about any of that stuff is. So there you go.
I'm amazed you're able to go and be a Secret Service agent with the guys. They just seem so stoic and quiet all the time. And I'm like, that had to kill you to not be able to talk. Standing there, just being quiet when you're around all these people. They would love to hear you.
You're a cop. You get it. I think the thing that is missed most often in police movies and TV shows is how funny cops are. Yeah. Like savage funny. Like Night at the Apollo, funny, hilarious. And it's no different in the Secret Service. You just gotta button it up, which, yes, is very hard for me sometimes, or was very hard for me sometimes. And sometimes I failed, and I wouldn't say got in trouble for it, but there was certainly a conversation or two from a well-intended mentor. So
did you grow up in a home that was involved in church?
Yeah. So, in church, we have what we call the C&E Christians, the Christmas and Easter. I'm going to need you to dial it down like 5 degrees below that. And that would be what my family was. There was, I think I can remember going to church twice with my family. And I suppose the statute of limitations has expired at this point. But I got in a fight at church as a kid. There was a kid who frankly, probably thought he was better than me. And I let him know in the parking lot, no, you ain't. So the people from West Pittsburgh are very proud of being from West Pittsburgh. And any hint of looking down on us will be met with the wrath of West Pittsburgh. And so maybe that's why we didn't go back more often. So not a lot of church attendance. But I'll tell you, man, we had some wonderful neighbors, the LaRues, who were very involved in church, and I have very fond memories of them taking any of us who would go with them, and I loved being in church, and I loved going to church, and early, man, I knew that was important, and I felt connected to God even without a way to name it or claim it, or make it personal. My grandmother and grandfather were members of the LDS Church, the Mormons, and not very active, but my grandmother gave me my first Bible, and it was a King James version, thus ensuring that the 6-year-old would never read it. I still have it. It's horribly tattered, but I still have the bookmark, So, I knew it was important, but never reinforced in any, meaningful way as a young person.
So, you go to high school, you didn't grow up really going to church, and you go to college, you get involved. I know you're heavily involved in your fraternity there. What was college life like for you?
Yeah, college was interesting. And so there's one important step in between those two, and that's 3 days after high school where, again, for listeners at home, I dominated. 3 days later, man, I am in U.S. Army basic training where I did not dominate in the slightest, and was 100% humbled in that experience, man. Like laid low, like I did not know was possible. And again, in all the best ways, man. Understanding that, hey, being an adult is about putting up and being able to demonstrate and contribute and be a member of a team. Don't want to gloss over, hey, in high school, really where I started having a relationship with Jesus. And two really important people in that time period. And one was a girl in my English class. Her name was Becky Madsen. And she's since passed. She died in her early 20s of cancer. It was just horribly unfair. And but man, a mature Christian, even in high school, and unafraid to share in that faith, and just a beautiful, beautiful human being. And a couple conversations, but I thought, hey, man, this is what it can look like. And the other guy is a guy named Jason. In high school, you're conscripted into math classes, whether or not you want to go. And Jason and I both clearly, with a love for math, find ourselves at the back of the classroom, not paying any attention. And, I think, the Mormon elders had come by our house, and visited my mom, and they gave me something to read. And so, of course, I thought math class would be a great time to read this. And Jason looks over and says, hey, man, what are you reading? And so thus starts the passing of notes back and forth. And I mean, Jason, you could not find two guys in different social circles, right? I was rocking the Billy Zabka blonde mullet like I just walked off the set of Karate Kid, and Jason's got the like he came out of a Motley Crue concert, and but on fire for Jesus, man, and shares with me, via these notes that, hey, man, there is a way, and it's not that way, and the way is Jesus, and Jesus wants you to follow him, and again, as I look back on that, I just think, not unlike Hunter, from your last episode, what a guy who's got it figured out, man, and over the course of a couple weeks, and we're talking, and really math class became theology. Ironically, at the school is Mount Devil became a theology class in the math class. And on a bus ride home, man, I'm sitting in the back of the bus all by my lonesome, and ask Jesus into my heart, and just make that that declaration to follow Christ. And that's where I'd like to tell you that all the mistakes in my life ended. But that is not the case. And so people say, I'm a practicing Christian. I am the most practicing of all, as I have yet to perfect even, maybe I've got step 1, but I'm somewhere between step 2 and however many steps there are. So in the Army, there's a church on every post, and on Sundays it's kind of a down day in training, and you can do any number of things. Not like you can leave, but man, that's where church attendance really starts for me, and that carries over even to even into college, and whether hey, I'm having to walk to church or catch a ride, or I'm choosing places to live in the city that are close to a church, so that man I can make sure that I'm in church on Sunday.
So, back to when you did the prayer and you became a Christian. How old were you?
17.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to hear. I'm sure we'll probably have some guys that are, in high school or, parents of high schoolers where they can share this. Hey, what you're doing matters. Oh, you might think it doesn't, but when you're talking and like your friend there who, unfortunately she passed away. But what they did with you, it changed your entire life.
100%.
And that impact that can have for a 17-year-old to be able to share that and to have the guts to share it with you.
100%. I still have it. I thought it was in this Bible, but it's at the one at home. The note Jason gave me, and that means a lot. I serve at Northfield Church in the high school student ministry, and occasionally, we're youth pastors out of town or whatever. And one Sunday I got to share, and I shared just that, and I brought the note. I said, man, do not underestimate your influence on your peers. I said, man, the next kid you're talking to might be, the next Sunday school teacher, might be the next pastor. Man, you have no idea how impactful, and you have no idea the influence that you have, and you may never live to see it, but it exists.
Jim, my children are 10. My son's 10. My daughter's 13, Maddie. And Maddie's always really had a heart for people and sharing the gospel. And we homeschool them now. And I told Maddie when we started homeschooling, I said, look, learn your Bible. That's the main thing that you need to know. And she's kind of taken that a little extreme. She avoids math and history because of that. And so I just had this conversation with her, hey, the Bible's critical, but you have to learn this other stuff too. I share all that to say, there's been times when we've been across this world doing mission work, and I'll look over, totally non-prompted, I'll look over and she's praying with these children from all around the world, telling about who Jesus is.
Amen.
And it just, as you're teared up thinking about your friends, Becky and Jason, that made an impact on your life, I'm thinking, man, I'm so glad that I see my daughter doing that, because I wasn't doing that when I was a kid. I was just trying to survive being a boy. And so anyway, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah. And it's an encouragement again that, we need to lead our children by example and encourage them that to keep fighting the good fight, to lead others down the narrow path. And so anyway, I wanted to say that because,
Yeah.
Do you still have any contact with Jason?
Brother, talk about the funny of funny. I still have all my yearbooks. I can't find that guy in a yearbook. I can't. It doesn't exist. I'm a trained criminal investigator, gentlemen, and I can't find this guy.
Wow.
And that I'm guessing that was the only class y'all had together?
The only class. I have no recollection of any interaction with him anywhere else. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there's an angel in math class, because math class is hell.
The angels are in the outfield in California.
But man, it is just wild how he's just gone, gone.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, that's good. I certainly know that the Lord puts people in our path, and then as followers of Christ, we're called to be in the path of others and be obedient to sharing and respond. And you said Northfield Church. I love Tom Hayden. He's a dear friend of mine. So
great.
I'm glad you're there.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
So you're a young man. You become a Christian. You hadn't really been active in church.
Right.
Did you start going to a church at 17 or just graduating high school and going into the Army?
Yeah. So there's no, man, and I'm so, jealous isn't the right word. I'm so happy, really, for kids today, and the way my kids growing up and your kids are growing up, where there's youth group every Wednesday. That there's men, and they're instantly connected with their peers, and that there is a place for young people to go and ask questions and be guided and how to live and walk in faith, and that just didn't exist in 1987. Again, King James Version Bible. I'm not sure I could make sense of it if I really wanted to, and so there wasn't a whole lot to do with it, or people to go to say, hey, what does any of this mean, And so I think in the early days, it's very much what I call yearbook theology. And when you get your high school yearbook, what's the first thing you do?
You ask people to sign it.
Well, yes. The first thing I did was go and find all the pictures of me.
Oh, and, yeah, there you go.
And so my yearbook theology analogy is, hey, this theology is all about me. I am literally off the hook for all the awful things I have ever done. And this is my get out of hell free card forever. And it's a horrible way to approach new faith. But again, absent any guidance, this is what a 17-year-old mind begins to do. And so step one is, hey, man, I know there's a future with Jesus. I know I'll be in heaven with God. That is my earnest hope and my belief. What the Army does, again, is give you that time, puts me in church. And then in college, hey, when I'm able to go to church, and even then I'm like, man, this is so new. And you feel so far behind. You feel like an outsider sitting in the inside, but it's really tough, And again, there's no young adults group. There's the ministry back then, and at that point,
it has changed a lot.
Yeah, and all for the better, man. To reach people where they are and their unique life situations. I'm at a church in Sacramento where I went as an undergrad, and I'm sitting next to Beverly, who's 67 years old. I love Beverly. She's fantastic. Beverly and I are at completely different stages in life. And my wish was that, hey, maybe there was a place where I could have gone as well. And whatever, it's all fine. It all works out. In college, so, regular church attendance, but then my sophomore year, you guys, students who've done a semester abroad.
Yes.
My mom did that.
Yeah, I did too, but it was called Desert Storm. And so my Army unit gets mobilized, and I get deployed over to Saudi Arabia for 7 months or so, and pulled out of college, and now, man, I'm back to the place that absolutely ruined me, just a year and a half before. And it was tough, but man, no better growth period for me. And I had read everything I had brought with me. And the Army, man, was great about faith and encouraging people in their spiritual development as well as their physical and, all these leadership development. The Army's great at all that. And the Army gave me a Bible that I could read, the NIV. And so had one of those, and it had a camouflage cover. It was very cool. And I thought, okay, hey, I've read, man, what did I read over there? I literally read everything. I read Alex Haley's Roots. I read and that's no small book, man. That's a tome. And so, I pick up the Bible, and it was really that, hey, man, I've been saying I'm a Christian now for 3 years. What does that even mean? And I remember sitting, in my barracks room, and I thought, all right, well, hey, let's start reading it. And what does a young 20-year-old with a very healthy ego do? He goes to the book that has his name on it. So I started with the book of James, which is
Jesus' half brother.
That's right. That's right. And I'm like, all right, well, hey, this one's got my name on it. I'll just start reading that one. And it's not a bad place to start, you know?
No, not at all.
Yeah. It's a good book. It's quick. I could get the credit for reading a book of the Bible. And I'm like, okay, like this is great, you know? And then, no shortage of pastors in the Army. And our pastor for our battalion, coincidentally, was also named Holcomb. And so, I felt a kinship with him and very, friendly. And he was, really a great guy to go to and talk to about, okay, hey, well, what should I read next? Like, I've read this James book. Like, where should I start? Please don't make me start at Genesis, And so he said, well, man, just start with the Gospels. And so, I started with Matthew and got through it all by the time I came home. And yeah,
and that's what I was going to ask. What kind of role did the military chaplain play in your development as a Christian man?
Yeah, I think helped me appreciate the approachability of a pastor. And I've rarely looked at pastors as the unapproachable, leave them be. I would say more often than not in my adult life, man, pastors have all of my sympathy. Obviously, they have all my respect, but man, they are very sympathetic people to me, and the pressures that people impose on a pastor, I think, is really probably unfair and also really tough. And so that was, again, 7 months, and that got me through probably the next couple of years of college. And then after that, I moved to Chicago, and I went from this super big church, Northfield size, or Hendersonville, First Baptist Hendersonville size church in Sacramento. And I moved to a little town in Illinois called Evanston. And Evanston at the time had more churches per capita than any other city in America. So they said. And I'm like, okay, well, hey, I want to continue going to the same, church that I attended in Sacramento. And so I call, the church headquarters back. And then I'm like, hey, do you guys have a church here? And they say, oh, yeah, it's down here. Well, I show up. And fellas, it is a 50 people church. It is a small church. And again, God's perfect timing. So over that next 2 years, man, I do connect with the Beverly in the congregation. Well, she stops me on my first Sunday, like, oh, no, we have coffee downstairs. Like, nobody leaves until we have coffee. I'm like, all right, I guess we're having coffee. And the pastor there, Jim DeGrotto, a wonderful man, raising 2 young girls, and clearly he saw the deer in the headlights look in my eyes. And when I wasn't traveling, he and I would have lunch on the regular, and man, he just availed himself to all the dumb questions that a young learner, young follower of Christ has, and I'm so grateful for that guy. And so after 2 years of that, getting that sort of individual attention, and having a safe place where you can go and ask really dumb questions, felt that was important and good for me.
Yeah, you talk about, you're at the church and you're there, and it's like, I'm this young man and I'm sitting with this woman who's quite a bit older, but I think it's very important for us to have those places to go to, like a men's ministry, but we also need to be in contact with those other people. Like, I don't just need to talk to people that are my age. I need those older men in my life to kind of guide me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was important for you too, as you're going to that smaller church and you become closer with more of the congregation probably.
Yeah. I think the really cool thing is there were a couple of young families, and early 20s, approaching the mid 20s at that point. Hey, you're thinking about the next phase of your life, and that's family. And so I see. I don't remember Chris's last name, but I remember the Nelsons and Chris and his wife. And I thought, hey, marriage doesn't have to look like the marriage that I saw. Marriage can be different, and that was really encouraging. To walk alongside. I don't think there, and then you had Guy and Sue as well, and the same sort of thing. There were no unmarried men my age in that church, which is fine. It was nice to be around other people who were doing life and living life as followers of Jesus, and in good, healthy marriages and good, healthy relationships. And I think what a gift that was for me to see that modeled in my early 20s.
And what are you doing at this point? Are you a school teacher? Or?
No. So at that point, you had mentioned, I was in a fraternity in college. I'm still in a fraternity. And so after college, they had a program where you could go and work as a, for lack of a better term, a leadership consultant for the fraternity. And you would travel around to our chapters in the U.S. and Canada, talking to them about, our policies but really the bulk of it was, hey, these are our values and our virtues. How can we apply these to daily life? And if we just did this, man, all these other problems that we have would solve themselves. You wouldn't have hazing in fraternities. You wouldn't have what I call the 4 horsemen of the fraternal apocalypse: hazing, sexual assault, drug abuse, alcohol abuse. Like they just wouldn't exist if you lived and lived out those virtues that we all voluntarily raised our hand and said, hey, we'd follow. Side note, I mean, it's the same in our faith.
Yeah. But I was going to ask you, how did those virtues for the fraternity, how do they align with how we're supposed to live as Christians? Yeah,
I think very closely. In Sigma, so I'm a member of Sigma Chi, and the badge is a white cross, and it's really funny. Again, I'm the first guy in my family to go to college. Nobody had heard of fraternity. I'm not sure many could spell fraternity, but there I am. And a cute girl I knew at another college said, "You should join a fraternity." And I'm like, if I am one thing in this world, it is a joiner. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out. And so I go to the quad, and I'm looking around and I see all these letters. Man, I do not recognize a single letter. I don't know a delta from an upsilon from a sigma. And I don't know what a sword means. I don't know what the skull means there. But man, I looked over here and I saw the white cross. I'm like, yeah, I know what that means. Yeah. And so, I go through the rush period, and silly me, I assumed, and while the cross, no matter where you put it, means Jesus. It's not a Christian fraternity, per se. It's very secular, and and that has its own challenges. But I thought, hey, this would be a great. If anybody's going to do it right, it's going to be these guys who put a white cross on their chest. And again, this is the late 80s, and so that's definitely not the case. They're just very aggressive and awful hazing, unfortunate. But I'd say this, the rhythm of being in a fraternity, having a ritual, as we do in the church. You have a ritual, you have a rhythm, Sunday night's chapter meeting, Sunday morning's church. If you're looking for that, man, they can be very complementary. And I found that to be so. Yeah.
Was there ever any difficulty balancing the fraternity life and the Christian life, or did you live out your Christian life as the fraternity member?
Well, it can be very easy if you choose for it to be very easy. I'm not sure I chose it.
I mean, at that age, most guys kind of struggle. That's when you see guys, if they're saved early on, a lot of them, when they hit that, 18 to, I guess, probably about 22 to 24 years old, that's when they tend to step out a little bit.
Yeah. There was stepping all the way out. Man, if I had a do-over, it would be that. Not great choices in line with faith, and I didn't do it without moral repercussion. Man, I did feel it. Yeah.
We're all sinners.
No,
and it's hard not to do things because
Yeah.
Those things that are sins are made to look like they would be a lot of fun and not cause problems for us, but they do. They cause issues.
Well, yeah, and not only for us, man, but for the people with whom we walk with into that sin.
Yeah.
And that's really, man, what sits in my heart 30 plus years later, where could I have been a better example? Where could I have been the Jason to somebody, and what a missed opportunity. I think one thing I certainly missed was that the yes to Jesus should come with a long series of no's on the backside of that. But at the end of the day, man, I wasn't man enough to say no.
It's got to be a little bit harder trying to figure out what that looks like on your own. I mean, if you had a dad that, and I'm not talking bad about your dad, but what you shared with us is y'all were Christmas and Easter and maybe even less than that in church. And so you got a young man coming out of high school, going into service, college. How in the world are you supposed to know what it looks like to be a godly man?
Yeah.
I mean, you had a Becky and a Jason in your life in high school, but that was a maybe a short term season of your life, but having that man in your life that displayed godliness.
Yeah.
What it looks like to be a man of God that dies to himself daily, takes up his cross. That's, man, you gotta learn what that looks like.
Yeah.
And it's not something you just really figure out on your own in any short fashion. So I see the anguish in you about what could have been done differently 30 years ago, and what you're doing now, sharing your story, has an opportunity to impact a lot of people, because you can look at the young guys. I'm 41, I'm not young, but even hearing your story, it's an encouragement that, hey, we always need to share our story, because we have these young guys that listen and benefit from that. And if you didn't go through the crap that you went through, then your testimony it'd still be powerful, but it'd be different. And so you can say, guys, I'm telling you, you don't want to sleep with other people. You don't want to be a drunk. You don't want to use drugs. You don't want to do these things. I did it, and it was a mistake. I survived it. Trust me, you don't need to do this. And God was not glorified in any of that.
Yeah.
And so
none of it.
It's good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
So you're working for the fraternity. Eventually you end up being a school teacher.
Yeah.
What led to that? Going
Yeah.
from Army, working for your fraternity, and now you're going to be a history teacher?
Yeah. So, and I think if there's one thing that changed, since becoming a Christian, it's that this, after I get past the yearbook theology, of course, it's that, man, this really isn't about me. And so how can I find ways to serve? I think I look back, and if I looked at the positive and role models that I had in life, there were school teachers. And I thought, hey, what a cool place to make a difference. And so I spent 2 years in Chicago. I came back. I went to graduate school, became, got my teaching credential, and started teaching, for the next couple of years. And that was both encouraging and maddening. I like to say that my ideal setting would be to teach at an orphanage where there are no parents. The kids were great, man. And some were absolute knuckleheads, but I think, I like to think, man, I offered a lot of grace in that space. Kids knew that, hey, if you got Holcomb for history, A, it was going to be funny. B, you were going to learn a lot. And C, the guy's pretty cool and pretty tolerant. But man, there is discipline in this classroom. And I think in 4 years, I sent 2 kids to the office. Like, man, I'll handle my own problems. And the expectations are clear, man. You don't get to disrupt and hijack the other 34 kids' education. Now, this is all before cell phones, so, not like I'm wonder teacher. I don't know how they do it today. But I'll say this. There is no job in which I worked harder and more than in education. And, we'll talk about the Secret Service when you tell me we are. But no shortage of guys, when we talk about, hey, what do you want to do after this? No shortage of guys that would say, oh, man, I think I want to go and teach high school. And I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, listen, man, like you think you do, because you're a good man, because you're kind, because you've got a servant's heart, but you don't want to go teach high school. Like, and I imagine they all think they're going to walk in there and say, I'm Mr. Smith, I spent 25 years in the U.S. Secret Service, and that the kids are somehow going to be impressed. I said,
They're not.
These kids are going to ask you, hey, did you ever kill anybody? And when you say no, they're going to go, well, you're not a real agent.
That's true, I'm sure.
Dude, it's so true. Like, they were so, like, they don't know enough to be impressed. And again, like, whatever, that's the high school kids, and it's cool. And I love that age group. I think they're absolutely fantastic. But they're 100% unimpressible.
That's so true. Were you involved with anything else when you were teaching? Were you doing drama? I mean, you loved that, you said, in high school.
No. So somewhere between the end of high school and starting to teach, I got super into running and triathlons, and so I became the cross country coach and for the school, and it was awesome. The two smartest group of kids you're going to find on any high school campus are your cross country team and your tennis team. And I called affectionately my cross country team my nerd herd. And dude, you've got a nerd herd when they're like, hey coach, I'm going to be a few minutes late. I've got AP calculus and I want to talk to him. I'm like, okay, nerd, like I gotcha. Like you go do that.
I didn't fit in that group.
Right. No, me either, man. And I'm like, you could be making, I'm not even sure we have a class called calculus. I don't even know that exists. And like, they're just fantastic, man. And I really, and I think in 4 years there might have been one, maybe two kids go to state, so it's not like we're some cross country powerhouse, but I really saw that as an opportunity to build community for a group of kids and teach them how to be in a fraternity. And there are a couple of things we do in the fraternity that, I started modeling with the cross country team and getting them to, hey, build culture and again, build that community, man, where we've got friends, and you're not in this alone. It's like a men's group, but well, honestly, it was really a high school group. So just fantastic. And I coached the distance runners on the track team for a season. So
as you're teaching, where were you in your Christian walk at that time?
Yeah. Did we have a church at that point? So I got married. Spoiler alert, that ends in a divorce. So it's not awesome. But looking to find a church at that point, and some in-house challenges with that. Let's leave that at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still a believer, reading the word, getting deployed. And now I'm like, all right, hey, what's up, Old Testament? I'm going to read you too. And so I'm plowing through that. And again, zero background in any of this. I am fascinated. Like, and running joke, with some of my pastor friends, like, I love the book of Leviticus.
True. No, you don't.
I do. Everybody says that.
It's the law.
Like, huh?
It's the law.
It's the law, buddy. Let's go. Like, give me some law. Give me some Leviticus. Give me some Romans. Like, let's get all up in here. Let's talk about what we're supposed to do. And I'm like, that's a law? Like, dude, this is awesome. Like, it's so fantastic. The idea of the rainbow, and in the Bible is, like, I'm telling you something you don't know. But there's so much history in there too. And as a history nerd, man, I'm like, oh, the rainbow is a covenant. That God makes with his people. And that's why we see it after the rain. Like, man, I really dig that.
And now you see it being changed into everything else.
You see it being hijacked and conscripted into other causes, and but you get a history of Israel, and I'm like, man, I'm here for it. Like, this is really cool. And then you read some stuff that I'm like, I have no idea what that means. But I'm like, all right, we'll just pass through that, and I'll come back to you at some point, And so still doing that. And then
you really loved the Song of Solomon. That was your favorite.
I mean, buddy, who doesn't? Right?
Proverbs chapter, I think it's 11 or maybe it's 7. I don't know. It's a good one too.
Yeah. So I teach for 4 years, and then I don't know, about 2.5 years in, I realize, man, I'm not going to make it 30 years in this career. And it's really tough because it's really all I wanted to do, and man, the op tempo, it was just nuts. And so, I start looking around. I'm like, as military police officer. It was my second job in the Army, and I enjoyed that. And hey, maybe law enforcement's a career for me. And I met through some mutual friends, I met an FBI agent at a dinner party. And I'm like, like any of us would when you're 27, like, hey, dude, FBI sounds kind of cool. Like, what's that like? And he says, man, it's great. You should apply. I'm like, I'm just a school teacher. He goes, man, we take all kinds. And, the diversity of background in an organization like the FBI, and I'd say the Secret Service, is really a strength. You've got different strengths you can lean on for any number of reasons. And I thought, all right, well, man, if I'm going to apply to the FBI, I mean, as long as we're doing stupid things, let's do really stupid things. And I looked at the Secret Service when I was in Chicago, and I'd called the office. I got an application. This is 95. And I'm like, you know what, man, like that seems like a lot of time away from home. I'm not sure I want to do that. And I threw the application in the trash. And well, fast forward to 1998, 99, I'm like, I think I'm going to call those guys too and see if I can't get an application. And so I did. And 13 months later, man, I get hired by the Secret Service. And so the way I like to tell the story is I'm at the panel interview with the Secret Service, and I said, hey, guys, you've been on 15 years, 20 years, 22 years. Man, if you had the chance to do it all again, would you? And every guy, yes, heck yes, double heck yes. I'm like, all right, well, that's encouraging. A couple of days later, we had a department meeting, for the social science department at my school, and I'm surrounded by guys who have been doing this 15, 17, 20 years. And I said, hey, Mike, and if you guys had a chance to do this all over again, to get into education, would you? No, heck no, double heck no. There's like not a one. I'm like, yeah, I should probably go, And so I left in May of 2000 and joined the Secret Service, and went to FLETC and then our training academy up in Beltsville, Maryland for the next 6 months.
So, you go in the Secret Service 2000. What were you doing when 9/11 happened? Yeah,
so I'd been out of the academy. So our graduation date on the academy was the Thursday after the 2000 election, and that's Bush v. Gore. And so, man, we don't have a president. We don't have a president-elect, I should say at that point. And so, out of the frying pan into the fire, like it's chaos, and it's the first time an electoral college has decided, the presidential vote in, several decades, right? Fun fact, and this is, I taught government in high school in addition to history, and I remember teaching the electoral college, and it's kind of, and again, this is the 90s. It hasn't been, nobody talks about it. You don't really understand it. We all have a front row seat in history in the last 20, 25 years of how important the electoral college is and how it works. And I'm like, yeah, and I did an adequate job explaining it and the why. And I said, guys, I wouldn't worry about it. It's not like it'll ever happen again. and 3 times now in the last, So welcome to Mr. Holcomb's government class. We sort that out. So fast forward to 9/11, where I was in 9/11, so I was in the Sacramento office. I got hired in Sacramento, was able to stay in Sacramento, which is kind of unusual. Sacramento is a smaller office. There was 13 agents in there and a boss. And the Thursday before, the boss calls us in. He's a fantastic guy. Love Mark to death. And he says, listen, we're federal agents. It's a federal agency. You're criminal investigators. No more state cases. We build federal cases. We want federal prosecutions, federal stats. Now, obviously, this is coming to him from the assistant director or the deputy assistant director. And, that's the law of the land. Well, that's, Thursday before 9/11. 9/11 happens. I'm at the gym. I see the planes fly into the towers and go home and see the second one hit. And then we realize, hey, we're under attack. And the boss calls and says, hey, stay away from the office. Like, we'll be in touch. By the time we get back into the office 2 days later, Mark comes back and he goes, everything I told you last Thursday, forget it. He says, we're all protection all the time. And he looked me right in the eye. He said, Jim, I'm sorry, but this job is going to change for you for the rest of your career. And he was absolutely right. And so I was the duty agent that week. And so in a small office, the duty agent rotates, and you're the agent for the week. And so any call that comes in, it's sort of a you catch it, you clean it. And the Secret Service investigates every threat directed toward the president, vice president, any of our protectees. And in that week, I had 3 very unique and very distinct cases that all fell to me, a guy with less than a year out of training. And that's during the day. At night, I'm working the midnight shift on the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. And I'm there probably, again, I don't know anything. I don't know how to do anything necessarily at that point, but I'm probably there in case they need to get a hold of my boss for some reason, or they need to marshal the resources of the Secret Service in some capacity. They would tell me, and I'd call my boss. Is pretty much why I'm there. But man, at this point, I'm 16, 20 hours a day, for a couple weeks. And while intense, man, I'd have worked 24 hours a day. Like, I think anybody in uniform at that time was looking for any way to help. And I'm no exception, So, briefly, just to give you an idea of the gamut, the first case I got, so 9/11's on a Tuesday. Wednesday morning, I get a call, and local citizen in Stockton, California says, hey, not for nothing, but the bus driver of the Muni bus said, it's a shame they didn't crash one of those planes into the White House and kill Bush. I mean, can you wrap your head around that on 9/12?
Yeah, not the best timing to be making that kind of statement.
Well, and what sort of whack job must you be, right? And so, thank goodness this is before social media, before the world all the stupid people can talk to each other on Twitter and Facebook. So she gets an interview, and that's, man, and everyone is a day, and 12 pages of reports and background checks and all these things, because our job is to determine, are they on a path to dangerousness? And if so, where are they on this path? Is she going to, is she disappointed that Al-Qaeda didn't crash a plane into the White House, and now she feels compelled to go and do this? The second one, the next day, I get a call from a bank, also down in Central Valley of California, and they said a young man has come in and he applied for a loan, and when we asked him about it, he said, I want to build a spaceship so I can go to outer space, meet with the aliens, have them come back and broker peace between Bush and the terrorists. Okay. While not a threat, shows an unusual direction of interest. Well, what happens if the president isn't amenable to meeting with the terrorists? Like, do you then feel compelled to take action? Well, one of the things that we are trained in is mental health, and seeing that. And so this young man, he was a college student, very bright kid, but man, wakes up one day and he's got bipolar disorder thrust upon him, and now his brain doesn't work. Nonetheless, we got to walk through the paces, and that's another several days of me dealing with this guy. And then the third one, that week, it was Friday night, and, closing up shop. I'm the duty agent. I'm the last guy out of the office, and my phone rings on my desk, and it's, the phone number is 202-406-0000. Now, it's not a real number, but we know that's from our headquarters. And, we talk about that in training, like, hey, if you see that, something bad has happened and you're about to get roped into it. And sure enough, I pick up the phone, and it's our intelligence division. And they said, hey, we got something new at our internet threat desk. The internet threat desk is a brand new thing. Somebody had sent an email to the White House that said, I act alone, and alone I will kill you. Right. So of all 3 that I've had, this is by far and away the greatest direction of interest, the most direct threat. And so I'm like, all right, and so they do the IP address thing, and we have no confidence that this IP address and connecting it to the bill provider is going to yield me a suspect, right? Like, who knows? This is the wild, wild west of the internet. And so I drive out to, imagine, it's a couple hours away, but it's a small town, not unlike Westmoreland, right? And so I swing by and I grab a local officer from Westmoreland PD, and I'm like, hey man, I called in advance. I'm like, you mind going out with me? He goes, no. And so roll up to this house on this side of a hill and, knock on the door, and this woman answers, and I said, "Hey, is Joe Smith here?" And not expecting there to be a Joe Smith at all. Like, who? And she goes, "Yeah, he's in the shower." I'm like, oh, okay. Do you mind getting him for me? She goes, no problem at all. She turns around to leave and leaves the door open. Well, man, inside above the fireplace is a World Church of the Creator flag, right? And the World Church of the Creator is a hardcore white supremacist outfit. The above, over the sofa is a Aryan propaganda family poster, and then like right by the door is an A-frame, sort of like a sandwich board that says, N-words go home, and I'm like, oh, what is happening? Like this feels like something right out of Training, right? And I'm like, this feels like a set. Like, am I being pranked here? So that's what I did on 9/11. For those that
wow,
week. Yeah. And those cases go on for a couple of weeks.
So was the boy the Joe Smith? He was the problem. Okay.
Yeah, he was the real deal, man. He was, and absent our intervention, do I think he would have done it? I think the motivation was there, and it wasn't crazy. And I say crazy, it wasn't clinically mentally ill. I think anybody who aspires to kill another person is a little bit mentally ill, but not wasn't being treated, wasn't medicated, anything like that. He wasn't like the young man I dealt with earlier in the week. So, yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, as we talk about Secret Service, I think a lot of the public just kind of think, oh, those are just the guys that protect the president and stuff. But they do so much more. They investigate counterfeit money.
That's right.
Is a big one. Mm-hmm. I know they used to fall under Department of Treasury, right?
That's right, Jeff.
And now aren't they under the Justice Department, or are they still Treasury?
No, not Justice. Founded in 1865. Thanks for coming to Jim Holcomb's history class. Founded in 1865 to suppress counterfeit currency that was coming out of the Confederate States. The primary mission was the suppression of counterfeit currency. And I forget how much it was. It might have been a third or greater of all the money in circulation was counterfeit.
Golly.
And so the government said somebody should stop that. And that was the Secret Service. And so, yeah, you're right. Originally, Department of the Treasury. Between 1865 and 1901, there are 3 presidents who were assassinated. Bonus points if you can name them all.
I cannot.
Well, Lincoln.
Oh,
my God. Was McKinley?
McKinley is the last one of the 3.
Johnson?
No.
I don't know.
It's all right. Think big, fat, orange cat.
Garfield.
There you go. Right. So in that next 35 years, you have 3 presidents who are assassinated, and the government, in its infinite wisdom, slow but ineffective, says, hey, somebody should stop that from happening. And so they then begin assigning the Secret Service that mission. And so 1901, McKinley on, we have that responsibility. And there's some legal nonsense, but after the assassination attempt on Truman, it becomes officially our responsibility, and then we pick up the candidates in 1968, and so we do all the presidential candidates once they meet a certain threshold. But that job has grown not only from counterfeit and protection to investigating all threats. Cyber crimes now is one that we share with several other agencies. Financial crimes is a crime we share with Justice Department. But in 2003, so after 9/11 and the reorg and the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, President Bush moves us over to Homeland Security.
Okay.
And that's where we've been since 2003.
So you spend your time in Sacramento. Of course, you're not on a presidential detail there, but
Correct.
If he comes to do a visit, your office is going to be doing some of the pre-planning of that.
Right.
Just like any Secret Service office is, like the one here in Nashville. J.D. Vance was this here.
That's
so
right.
They're doing the pre-operation for that, for his visit.
Yeah, it's a counterpart system. And so Washington, D.C. will send a team out from either the president's detail or the vice president's detail and partner you up with a counterpart in the local office. And you guys, and part of that is to make sure that us guys, and I was a guy from D.C. A while later, we don't ruin all the local relationships that the local office has with the local PD or the sheriff's office. And again, you're going to drop me off in the middle of Atlanta, Georgia. Man, I don't know where I'm going. So it's sure helpful to have a guy from the local office to get me where we need to go and to be efficient in our planning and practice.
Yeah, you sign on to be a Secret Service agent. I would think anybody that signs on to do that, their goal is to eventually be on the presidential detail, because that's kind of the pinnacle of what y'all do. And that's different. That's a different role for most law enforcement, because you're going in and you're saying, I'm going to put my body in front of this other person's to save their life. I'm going to take a bullet for this other person. Mm-hmm. What's it like? What's having that mindset like? And how do you come to that?
Yeah. Just minor correction. I think, hey, when people join the Secret Service, I think everybody thinks, oh, I'll fly on Air Force One and I'll be in the motorcade and I'll walk down Pennsylvania Avenue on Inauguration Day. And man, that is such a narrow path. Yeah. And things change. We've got some guys, a spouse passes away, or they get divorced and man, now they can't move. And so, hey, they're in Houston. Hey, maybe they go to former Bush, because we also protect the former presidents and their families. And then there's some quality of life issues. If parents get older or become infirmed and they don't want to leave, and all that's fine. And I'm a big tent Secret Service guy, man. Everybody's job is important. To your question, I think we recognize we might have to put ourselves between the president and a bullet, but our goal is always to prevent bullets from getting into the site to begin with.
Yeah, is this a little bit different? Like, as a police officer, I know, I have to prepare myself when I became a police officer. Like, hey, would I be able to take somebody's life if I had to? And it's just a little bit different than being your run-of-the-mill law enforcement officer.
Yeah, it's a little different, and I think part of it too is, man, our job is to run away with a protectee,
right.
Which is.
And I'm not supposed to run away.
Right.
I hope I don't. So.
Right. It's a little counterintuitive to the soldier mentality, to the law enforcement mentality. And hey, we also do a lot of investigations, and I am always running toward that fight and aggression. And there are some times in the protection matrix where, hey, my job is to respond to the violence, But yeah, I think it's, you have to condition yourself to understand and resolve that, hey, I'm willing to sacrifice a life. I'm also willing to take a life, so that this country can continue without the, usurpation of one individual. The tyranny of the minority doesn't decide how we run as a country. We have elections, and those elections are decided and are to be respected. And one lone assassin or a group of people who want to kill somebody, they don't get to decide. The course of history.
Yeah. Now, you eventually did make it to where you're on the president's detail.
Yeah.
How far was that into your career?
Yeah. So at that time, I did about 4 years in Sacramento, and then got a transfer number to Washington D.C. And that was in 2004. I was out there in September of 2004, and then everybody coming through at that time did a small stint of one sort or another on either the Secretary of Treasury or the Secretary of Homeland Security. I was on the Secretary of Treasury detail, and there were offers early on, like, hey, if you want to go to the Vice President's detail, you can go now, and only do 4 months here on Treasury. But if you want to go to the President's detail, you're gonna have to wait a little longer. And so I waited, and I did about 13 months on Treasury, which was, a gift. Didn't necessarily feel like it at the time, but absolutely a gift. Helps you learn the city, helps you really get the reps of the protection operation on a daily basis for a year before you then go and do it for the president.
Yeah, and there's quite a few people on that detail, also on the president's detail. It's not like what you see on TV where you see like the 4 guys standing there. He has a lot of protection. Which we know is needed. What was that like? You went, and I think you were with George W. Bush.
Yeah, so I got there in 2004, so shortly before the re-election, and then got to his detail in 2005. And it's, again, a history nerd, man, it's awesome. You get to work at the White House. I'm a kid from West Pittsburgh whose dad's a steel worker, and they hand me a key that opens every door to the White House. And my job is to know every nook and cranny of that place so that in case of emergency, man, we can keep the president and his family and staff safe. And that's awesome. I mean, there's lots of, my friends call them pinch me moments, and I would agree. A lot of sobering moments, first time that I step in the Oval Office, you're like, all right, this isn't this isn't a fake Oval Office. It's the real deal, man.
It's not the Hall of Presidents at Disney World.
Right. The first time, that you're walking the president over, from the residence there, or, you're on the spot where you ride down the elevator with him, or he turns and asks you a question and you're like, all right, must project competence, don't let your voice crack. Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's the job you train for, and it's a great responsibility.
Yeah, and it's a very demanding job, demanding on your time, everything else. When you're on that, where you're at in your walk at that point?
Yeah, I'd say major league faith. Man, like it is sustaining me. Absolutely serving that cause greater than yourself, understanding that hey, I'm here for a reason, and whatever happens, man, hey, if today's the day that everything goes sideways and there's no tomorrow for me, like I'm good, I'm all right with that. In Sacramento, I don't want to gloss over when I was in the field office there. Found a wonderful church to attend and a great pastor, Jim Bogier, who is, just, again, not unlike Jim DeGrotto, just wonderful with his attention and patience and mentoring and, just, again, allowing me to ask really dumb questions and having the patience to walk you through, the eternal truths, And so I'm taking that and I'm able to walk with that over the next handful of years. I would say the real challenge of being on the detail is, it makes consistency difficult, and so I'm not a member of any church at that time. This Bible that has since been rebound has traveled the world and has been all over with me, and it's well used, well marked up, and it's a lot of self-study. We do. The internet is around. It's not as accessible as it is today, but and then finding other believers to walk with, and when you're on trips and you find opportunities to go to church with other guys, and you're overseas, and hey, you want to go to this 1,400-year-old church on Sunday for service? Yeah, let's do that. So really neat in that respect.
Yeah. So. While you're on, I got to ask you about when you're on the president's detail. And this question, you don't have to use names if you don't want to, but did you see anything, because these people you're dealing with every day are world leaders, whether it be military generals, and people come to see the president. Did you see anything from any of them that made an impact on you in your Christian walk?
Yes. Yeah, and keep in mind, and there were several things that we don't turn a blind eye to. Hey, we're not the morality police.
Right.
Our job is to keep people safe and keep the government humming. But I was inspired by the work ethic of several people in the administration. And when you're with them all the time, you see the way that they treat their spouse. You see the way, man, that they're devoted to God, and that, hey, church attendance is important to them, and they live it outside as well. And it's in a world of climbers and self-aggrandizement, man. When you see it lived out authentically, it's really cool.
You're going to see the real them, not what we might see on a short thing on TV or something like that, because they're getting 24-hour-a-day protection.
That's right.
I do got this from stuff we've talked about in the past. You were part of President Bush's mountain biking team.
Yeah.
And I believe that's because you were the Secret Service agent that knew how to ride a bike. Or
several people know how to ride a bike. And anybody that rides mountain bikes, will tell you it's a different beast. It's not the bike of your childhood. You're dodging trees, and there's rocks, and it's a tight formation, and you're out there by yourself in the middle of the woods, and you've got for us anyway, there was a harness underneath our shirts that had our pistols in it and extra ammunition, and on the back was a radio. And so then you've got another 3-4 pounds on you that is absolutely compressing your diaphragm and making it tough to breathe. And man, President Bush was no joke, man. He was all gas, no brake. And so when you're out there with him, and it doesn't matter whether it was the heat of summer out at Belvoir or up at the top of Camp David in December, man, he was all go.
Yeah. Is there I'm going to go into a little bit different direction.
Sure.
I know you have your Bible, but do you have a favorite passage or anything?
Yeah. The first one that ever stuck out to me, man.
Is it going to be James? No.
I have the entire book of James memorized. The first one that jumped out at me, and again, you hit on it, man. I love me some rules. I love Leviticus. I love Romans. But the first time I read Micah 6:8, and what does the Lord require of you, O people of Israel, to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God? I'm like, dude, is that it? Like that's it.
Yeah.
It's like when they challenge Jesus and, hey, what's the greatest commandment? Hey, love your Lord, with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor. Like I like simple, and so act justly, love mercy, walk humbly. And I think, that's probably, favorite is tough, but I mean, that's probably, one I go to a lot. I've got it open here, and not only as a reminder, man, but an encouragement. And I absolutely love my time with the Secret Service. It's there are a lot of ways to spend 20 years. That is one of them. And that is a fun way to do it. It's certainly a different way to do it. It's not a job accessible, to everybody, and that's fine. But I love this verse in Isaiah 64:6. All of us have become like one who is unclean, and all of our righteous acts are like filthy rags. We all shrivel up like a leaf, and like the wind, our sins sweep us away. No one calls on your name or strives to lay hold of you. And, I like that. Hey, in light of all this Secret Service talk, man, I am, my best day in the Secret Service is 1,000 miles away from the glory of God.
Amen.
And it's fun and it's cool, and and I'm happy to talk about it. And it's and when we're at rallies and at events, people like to talk to us, and man, we're as close as a lot of people are ever going to get to the president.
Yeah,
and that's fine, man, and that's great. And they're going to go home and say, oh, hey, we get to talk to a Secret Service agent, and it was really neat, and it was, and in many respects, man, like you're an ambassador to the city of Gallatin. Hey, we're an ambassador to the White House. And whether or not you voted for the guy in the White House, you're an ambassador to Article 2 of the Constitution, and I'm fine with that. But man, it ain't about me, and I am the least special agent.
Well, because it is interesting,
Yeah.
And people find, it's just, well, other than high schoolers, they find it kind of cool,
Right.
But it's a lead-in. That can lead to that conversation about Jesus with people, and it opens the doors for you where other people might not be able to get in there. And I think that's a great tool that you have.
Yeah.
This being a police officer can, open some doors for me that might not be open for others.
Yeah.
Foster's an airplane pilot. Him being able to fly planes, owning his own business, that opens doors for him that don't open for me, and puts him in contact with different people. So when we're able to see that and take advantage of that, that's huge.
Yeah.
Let me ask, excuse me, Mr. Holcomb, at what point in your life did you figure out or decide that being a Secret Service guy wasn't near as important as walking with the Lord? Like, you just made the comment that all the cool stuff that you get to do is not near as cool as walking or being in glory with the Lord. And when did you figure that out? Because I've just kind of come to that realization in my own life in the last 5 years. And so at 35, 36, maybe 38 years old, I realized, man, this peripheral, this temporal stuff that I've spent my life going after, not all absent from walking with the Lord, but maybe equally prioritized as my walk with the Lord. At what point in your life did you figure out, man?
Yeah, fortunately, I'd say that's one of the things I got early on and in college, certainly in college, was, hey, none of this is about you. Once I closed the yearbook theology and realized, hey, there's really a chance to be of service to other people. And so even before I dropped my application, I like to think I had that mindset, and over 21 years, man, anytime I got the chance, I'd joke and I'd say, man, I'm here to put the service back in Secret Service. And it's tough because the Secret Service is a combustion engine that runs on ambition and disappointment. And everybody there is awesome, man. And there are guys who are 10x my level of awesome. Man, and so you're surrounded by really impressive people. And man, and that could be humbling at times too. And that's okay. And I remember counseling other friends of mine, guys who wanted to do this in their career, but that didn't happen for them. And I said, hey, if on the day you were hired, they were able to map out your career and say, you're going to start in this office, you're going to go to this detail, and then when you're done with that, we know you're going to want to go to Raleigh, North Carolina. But man, we're going to send you to Portland, Oregon. Would you still take the job? And they all said, yeah, I'd take the job. And I said, well, of course you would. I said, so what's changed? The only thing that's changed is our sense of entitlement in that, And one of my favorite stories in the Bible is in the book of Acts, and it's in Acts chapter 1, and it's hey, spoiler alert for those who haven't read it. Judas, one of the original 12, kills himself. Like he commits suicide. It's wild, and so they got to find the replacement apostle, and it comes to Justus and Matthias. And the other 11, they cast lots, which, debates or not debates, but I think there are interpretations of what that means. It's not a vote, but they sort of leave it to the Holy Spirit. Like, here, we're all going to toss a coin and, hey, majority heads, it's this guy, majority tails, it's that guy. And Matthias ends up being selected as the replacement apostle. And I love that story because do you know what happens to Matthias?
I do not.
Yeah, nobody does, right? And so the guy who is selected, nobody knows what happens. You know what happens to Justice who's not selected? Right. No, nobody knows. Well, I guess we know. It's not chronicled in the Bible, but we know that they both go on to found churches, and the work continues, right? The work of justice continues. And they had both been there since, and Acts tells us they've both been there since the beginning, following Jesus. And they were both brought forward to be the replacement apostles. So, I mean, hey, man, you can't find more qualified guys. And so when Justice isn't selected, he doesn't turn around and say, well, this whole thing's stupid. This police department, the Secret Service is now dumb. They don't recognize my greatness, and I'm going to go full Ricky Bobby and burn the place down, you're all idiots. No, man, he just goes about doing the work. And I love that. And in a place, again, that runs on ambition and disappointment, man, I had to check myself sometimes. Like, I didn't get this assignment I wanted, or I didn't get to do this. And I'm like, man, ain't none of this about you. Yeah. You came here to serve. And so be of service. And, there are things that I could do that other people can't do. And there are things that other people can do, man, that I can't. And I guess it's be okay with that. Be okay. Hey, if you really believe that God put you here, then be okay with where he put you.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
Yeah, something I know is important to you is, and that you've studied, you've read a lot about, and you've taught is leadership and, leadership principles. How, as a Christian man, and it's very important for the man of the home to lead their family in faith. And, we see that, you see a lot of families that don't do that. How as the man of your house, do you lead your family in faith with your wife and your son? And why is that important? Yeah.
Well, I think it's important because more is caught than taught, and so if you're leading your family in faith, leading them well, I think they're going to follow that. And as a kid, again, my story and maybe your stories as well, hey, you emulate what you saw. and until you see something different, and so my hope is that my sons will see, hey, this is a guy who, on his own accord seeks Jesus, and how do I lead, man? I try to lead with more grace, or with grace, knowing, man, I've been forgiven 10x beyond what I deserve. There's really nothing to be mad at my family about. Right. Like at the end of the day, it's really all a me problem, and my wife and I, man, get along famously, and she comes from a Catholic background, and when we got married, it was, hey, very real talk about this is what we do on Sundays. This is kind of where we go. And if you're in for that, great. And if not, that's okay too, but then we're not doing this together. And I think one of the coolest things, man, nothing matters more in my life than seeing my wife walk with Jesus. And, man, I don't care if I never talk about the Secret Service again or do anything. I said at the beginning, none of it matters. None of it matters except this, and it's easy to lose sight of that at times. But, I think I lost.
No, it was great. I was going to point out, and when I say, you're leading your family, you're doing that with your wife. Like Foster and Jackie, they're leading their family together, but it's so important, for that man to be, especially, if you have a son or a daughter, because if you have a son, you want them to see and have something good to emulate. Mm-hmm. Hey, I want you, this is how you need to lead your family. This is how you need to treat your future wife. If you have a daughter, this is how your husband should treat you. Mm-hmm. And as for your wife, hey, if you're a daughter, this is how you should treat your husband, and it's a partnership that you do. And I just want to make that clear, that I'm not saying, oh, you're leading your house with like an iron fist or something. It is a partnership you and your wife have. And I don't want anybody to try to misinterpret what that is being said.
And if Shannon was here, man, she'd tell you. She said, no, Jim's the leader of our house. And I would say, and in that, man, I think I have a great responsibility to honor her, right. In the decisions, that we make, and
well, that part of the Bible, a lot of people try to misinterpret and make it a worldly view and say, oh, well, it's men being over that. No, we're loving our wife like Christ loves the church.
That's right.
We're serving our wife.
Yeah. And the way we operate is very much, and what Truman will understand is we try to outlove the other, like out kindness the other. Like there's nothing I wouldn't do for her. And I know the same is true, for me. And I've got, young friends and they're starting families, and, if we get around to talking about raising kids, I say, the best thing you can do for your kid is to love them second.
That's right. And there's many times I've told my kids that. I'm like, listen, Maddie, my daughter, I love you. I love your mama more. If I hear you disrespect her one more time, I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
And I mean it. But anyway,
that's
good.
And that's, and again, hey, the kid is a close second, but brother, you're still second.
And it's a different kind of love, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it better be a different kind of love.
Sure. Yes. But you see oftentimes, or, I've known people and have seen it up close where, hey, the kids are the most important thing in the marriage, in the house.
Well, then the kids are gone and the marriage falls apart.
That's it, man. Yeah. That's it.
No,
that's tough. Man, talking about leading the family, and my wife, man, is the grounding rod for our family. And when we're trying to lead, it's always biblical principles first. And man, she'll be the first one to go, hey, I know you want to go throat punch this person. Is that in the book of Second Opinions here, to throat punch people? And I'm like, it's absolutely not in the book of Second Opinions. Well, it's in the book of Second Opinions,
right?
But it's nowhere else.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, it's a great partnership, and so.
Yeah, you're a big reader. Other than the Bible, do you have a favorite book or one that has had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, man, I read a lot of really good stuff and interesting stuff. Man, the one I go back to, and if you talk about, I don't know, Christian influencers, I'm a huge C.S. Lewis fan, and I would say Mere Christianity, as a young guy who's trying to figure it out, man, I pick up Mere Christianity at a used bookstore when I'm 26, and I'm like, dude, I think I'm starting to get it, and in that vein, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, man, is awesome. And for those who don't know, I mean, there's a series of books. I think there's 7 books, and they're each just fantastic. And you and I are in all of the books, and our shortcomings, our sins, our personal petty grievances are all represented in there, and they're all forgiven by God. And what's really cool is the characters come face to face with the living God, in the shape of Aslan, and it's so great. And I think. On multiple readings, through it, and I probably read it once a year. The first couple times you're reading it, and everybody reads it, and they want to see themselves as Peter. Man, I'm or if the young girl, you're Lucy or Susan, or I'm Reepicheep, I'm the most noble of all the characters. Man, we're all Edmund. We're all the kid who betrays him. And I don't know. I get grounded in that, that, hey, again, no matter what we do, no matter what we accomplish, Christ is crucified because of me, and it's such a great story. It's such a beautiful and well-told story. So that's probably my favorite. I like other nerdy stuff too.
Right.
There's one, How to Be Unlucky. And I don't know the author, but it's a philosophy book, and really great. He's a guy who teaches classics at a private school in Florida, and wrote this book, again, How to Be Unlucky. And what I love about it is just the practical advice he gives his students, and it's all wrapped in ancient philosophy and Plato and Socrates and all these things. But the one that sticks away with me, and it really, I guess there's 2, and the first is when he's talking to his students about cheating, you might get away with it, but you'll never get away with getting away with it. And I really like that, and I thought, so there's 2 things. Hey, you could cheat on this math test, but then you're going to go the rest of your life not knowing math. And then, hey, one day we're all going to be held account for the sins that we've committed. We're going to have to answer for all those. And the second is, he talks about vice and drinking, and he says, hey, it's something like 1 is just right, 2 is too few, and 3 is too many. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And he really breaks it down like, hey, we drink because we're thirsty. Like, what are you doing after beer number 1 if it's not a thirst thing? And I thought, that's really interesting. And that began my quest for 1 year with no beer. That's now, I don't know, 7 years or so, or somewhere in there. So,
we had Bruce Raley, who's one of our pastors, on, and we were talking about 1 Peter chapter 5, which is a lot with leadership. And then we started talking about these different leadership books. Like, you have all of them, like this 15 rules of this, 17 rules of this. But the good leadership books, and we talked about this, are all, you can find it in the Bible. They might not be specific in their book, where it comes from in the Bible, but man, the Bible is the ultimate leadership book.
Hard to argue with that.
And the good secular leadership books you can find those principles right there in the Bible.
Well, and there's certainly lots of ways to lead that are found here. If you go to what are the greatest commandments, none of them say it's all about you. In fact, none of it's about you. It's love God, so be called to a purpose higher and better than yourself, and to love other people. None of it says ingratiate yourself. And then, in that, and one of my favorite stories is, the story of David and how, you've got a king who is absolutely corrupted by all the entrapments that are presented in leadership. And the service is not immune to scandal and, a decade plus ago. But my thought was always, hey, nobody comes on this job to fly to Colombia and get together with prostitutes. Man, we just weren't prepared to say no to that.
Right.
David didn't want to become king so I could, covet this woman over here and send her husband to die in war. No, man, it's just like you just failed to prepare yourself to stand against that sort of thing, and so, in talking to leaders, like, hey, what are the temptations that are going to come to you? In law enforcement, man, we deal with a lot of money that's unaccountable. Are you going to steal money? You're going to lie on your voucher? The number of agents, in the Secret Service that get fired for lying on their voucher, $60 cab ride. You're going to give up $150,000 a year career for a $60 cab ride. Like, man, are you crazy? And again, it's that personal grievance. Well, they shorted me on overtime, so I deserve that. Man, deserve ain't got nothing to do with it. Man, I would rather be shorted on overtime in this life than get everything I deserve.
Yeah.
I do not want to be in the business of getting what I deserve in this life.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
To be a Christian, you have to admit you're a sinner.
Oh.
You have to admit you're a sinner. You have to ask forgiveness. You have to ask Jesus to be Lord of your life. To be a good leader, you have to admit your faults. You have to admit that you don't know everything. There's a lot of parallels in there. Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Do you have trouble placing leadership level trust and confidence in people who can't recognize how broken they are?
Yeah, I would say yes to that. I'm trying to think of some examples, but I remember as a kid, just some men that really stood out as leaders in my life until I saw them make mistakes and never admit it as a mistake. I'm like, really? You just did that and that caused a problem, but you won't ever admit that you caused this problem. And then you start to lose some respect for that. But so yeah, I do find it hard. And even in the church,
sure,
with I'm not saying with Pastor Chester, I'm just saying some of the pastors, the young guys in our church that are in pastoral roles, it's like, don't be arrogant, be humble, and understand that we're all learning and being sanctified as we're walking with the Lord, and we're not always going to get it right. And most of the young pastors around here are pretty good about that, but it makes me bonkers. Mm. You talked about reading the book of James as one of your first books of the Bible so you could get through it. And one of my favorite scriptures that I come back to is in James chapter 5, verse 16. It says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. And I go back to this all the time. I mean, on a weekly basis, I look at this and I think, I'm a nobody. And if I can't tell you or tell Jeff that I'm struggling in this area. I came in this morning and told one of our pastors, I said, I was having breakfast across the street at this little family or whole market place. They have a great breakfast bowl, and there was a couple ladies that walked in, pretty ladies, and I said, Lord, please keep my mind clear.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't have a desire to go, but it's there. I mean, it's inside of me, and so I came over and I said, man, I was over here eating breakfast, and these girls, and I just have to say, Lord, please keep my mind clear. But anyway, so I love that verse. I look at it all the time like, hey, don't be so prideful and arrogant and think that you don't need to confess your sins. And I need to be able to come to my brothers and say, hey, I need you to pray for me on this. Mm-hmm. Because it's a struggle.
And it's our egos that cause us to fall most often, I would say, thinking that I'm better than what I really am.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this one. Have you ever mentored someone, or are you currently mentoring anybody? Has anybody ever mentored you? And I know you mentioned some of the pastors, and sometimes, I found this, people will be a mentor to you, and they have no clue they're your mentor.
Right.
And knowing that also, how has that impacted you?
Yeah.
Knowing that you might be a mentor to somebody, and you don't even know it.
Yeah. So I do a lot of now volunteer work with my fraternity. I've been involved since I graduated college, and we have numerous opportunities to mentor young college men, and one of those programs is a program called Horizons. And we go out to the mountains of Utah every summer, and it would take about 250 undergraduate men a year from our 240 chapters. And they're paired up, a group of 8, with a mentor, or we call them a guide. And we spend this week learning about the dimensions of leadership, self, others, action, community. And then we agree to enter into a mentorship role to whatever degree they want for the next 2 years until they graduate. And all the guide training was always in September, and I could never do it. It's a program that just celebrated its 25th anniversary. But for 21 years, I couldn't do it. Every September is the United Nations. Secret Service were obligated to that, so I could never go and be trained. So I got trained the year I retired, went and served the following year, and so I just finished the 2-year commitment with my group of 8 guys. And some guys called, and and we connected more than others. But I think the idea was, hey man, we're here for whatever you need. And we have such exposure to the undergraduate population in Sigma Chi that there's really no shortage of opportunities to mentor to whatever degree that they want, and it doesn't have to be anything formal. But my hope is that I'm doing that sometimes intentionally, with the obligation in the Horizons group, and sometimes unintentionally with some of the articles I'm able to contribute to the magazine. You talk about, hey, did I have mentors? And it's funny. I guarantee somebody out there's like, oh, Jim Holcomb's my mentor. I'm like, I have no idea that you feel that way about me. And I'm sure if Jim DeGrotto would ever hear this, he'd say, who is Jim Holcomb? Who is this kid that I used to have lunch with allegedly from 94 to 96? And that's fine. It doesn't have to be chronicled. Justice and Matthias, the events don't need to be chronicled to be significant and impactful. So,
do you have anything else you want to share with us before we get ready to close this out?
Before you kick me out, man, we've burned the chicken here, dude.
My wife's going to have supper ready.
Sorry,
That's good.
man.
No, it's
Sorry.
good,
Okay.
dude. This has been great.
Oh, great. No, man, I just...
You can plug your podcast that you just started if you'd like.
Fantastic. That's great. Welcome.
If people want to hear stories of Secret Service, it's a little bit different format than this one.
Yeah. I had this idea several years ago while I was still in the Secret Service. And man, I contend that the Secret Service, for all of its public facing stuff, is filled with some of the best human beings, man, that you're going to find. They love America. They're constantly seeking to do the right thing. And so, I don't know, the last couple of months I thought, well, actually, man, it came out of Horizons, that program. We have the guides and the undergraduates both alike do a life map. Like, hey, what do you want to do? What are your values? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And this has been on my life board for a couple of years. And I'm like, all right, it's time to get busy. And so the podcast is called Outside the Secret Service. And I invite former agents or officers to come in, and everybody gets the same 5 questions. What inspired you to join? What did you do during your career? What's your go-to story? When people find out you're in the Secret Service, they've got one question, or you've got one story at the ready. What's that story? Why'd you leave, and what are you doing now? And then what'd you learn? And as you can imagine, I mean, it takes all sorts of twists and turns along the way. And the episode coming out, the next one coming out, really deals with school violence and school shootings, because the guy who left the service has found his space in that field.
And what's the name of it?
The podcast?
Yeah.
Outside the Secret Service.
And is it on? It's on.
It's on anything you want.
Okay.
Yeah. Apple Music, Spotify, Cat Pajama, Turtle Sock. I just made those last 2 up.
Yeah,
Those
well,
really
you sent it to me on Podbean, and that's the first time I had to download the app. I did not have that app, and that's what I was.
Well, and you can get it anywhere. Podbean is the publishing platform, and you can also listen to podcasts on there. But Spotify is just a aggregator; like you don't publish through Spotify. Right. So, I don't know how you guys do it. Yours sounds fantastic.
Is on everything. It's on all the platforms.
Right.
And Aaron, who's usually here, he takes care of that.
Cool.
Foster and I don't know what.
No.
We don't know that side of it.
Yeah.
We just sit here and talk. So.
Well, Mr. Holcomb, thank you for coming today and sharing some of your story, and it really has been a blessing to have you here, and I appreciate what you do and what you've done for our country.
No, thanks,
and
man.
I appreciate your leadership over at Northfield Church, and man, keep up the good work. And man, I'd love to close us in a prayer.
Yeah, before you close us out, said this on our last episode, but if anybody has any questions for Foster or stuff you'd like to hear us discuss on this, or any guests that you'd like to have, or if you'd like to be a guest, you can reach out to us. Foster can give his email address for that.
Yeah, the email here at church is fcarney, that's CARNEY, at FBCHTN.org.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we've had together today with Mr. Jim, and thank you for his story. God, thank you for just all the things that you do, that you allow us to be a part of. We're not worthy of any of it, and still you allow us to be obedient and come alongside of you in so many ways of reaching people in different areas. It just amazes me that your scripture tells us we're all part of the body and we each play a different role, and how true that is, God. And I just pray that in my own life that I'll continue to just have this desire to tell others about you, and I'm inspired by guys like Jim that take every opportunity he can and point people towards you. God, we love you. Pray for protection as we go home and over our families. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Path, a podcast production of the men's ministry of First Baptist Church in Hendersonville, Tennessee. For more information, or if you have questions, please visit our website at FBCHville.com. That's FBCHville.com.